Hello, today I'll be coding a rainbow square ring of cubes. So square means that we're going to have a number of edges that's equal to 4, and along each edge we're going to have a number of cubes that's equal to, let's say, 8. And then the total number is going to be the product between these two, so the number of edges times the number of cubes. Then we're going to have an assembly, a 3D assembly, and within it we're going to loop. And the reason why I'm commenting this out is because I've had trouble with getting into infinite loops this way, and I want to avoid that. For every cube, I'm going to have a number of faces, which is 6. And again, I'm going to have a loop. Cube face here. And let's uncomment that. So let's save stuff. View the compiled stuff. Okay, looks good. Let's move on to the CSS. Here we're going to have an edge length. Actually, let's make it in viewport unit so that everything scales nicely. Now for the cube faces, so cube face, I'm going to have a width that's equal to that edge length and a height same. And let's set the background, actually current color, and let's also set a box shadow. Okay, and this is going to be inset. All the offsets and the blur are going to be 0, and here I'm going to have 2 pixels for the spread, and it's going to be a white shadow. Okay, that's good. Next thing, let's set a few things for the background, for the body. So first of all, we're going to set overflow hidden. We're going to set a full height. We're going to set a perspective, let's say something like this, 50. 5 is way too exaggerated. Let's set a perspective origin that's a bit above the midpoint. So in the middle horizontally, but vertically, I'm going to have calc a 50% minus, I don't know, something like 3 times the edge length, something like this, and then set the background to black. And this is it for the body. Now for the assembly, let's put everything in the middle. But before we do that, let's set a few styles for the generic div. So we're going to have all this absolutely positioned, and then we're going to have transform style preserve 3D. Okay, that's it for the divs. Now everything in the middle, so that's top 50% and left 50%. Okay. Now also let's set a margin here that's minus half the edge length. Now minus half, not that's going to be 0.5, not 5. Also set here backface visibility hidden, and let's set a transform, and this is going to be rotate 3D, and here we have the vector along the x-axis, along the y-axis, and along the z-axis it's always going to be 0. Here we're going to have a calc value for the angle, and this is going to be a multiplier, which is 1 by default times 90 degrees. Okay, let's and here also a translation of half the edge length. Now let's set the I 0 and the j, depending on I, 1 minus I. So now when I changes, j also changes. Okay, something else we're going to do here is nth child n plus 5, and that's because we want this for the faces that come after the lateral faces, so that's the top and the bottom face. We're going to have I equal to 1, so we switch from 0 to 1, and then we're going to have a loop for I from 0 to 6 because we have 6 faces, and we only need to set this multiplier for the faces where we don't need it to be 1, and that's going to be the second lateral face and the first horizontal face, which is the top. So those are going to be the faces at indices 1 and 4. So that's going to be if I modulo 3 different from 1. So if it's not at 1 or 4, then we're going to set nth child I plus 1, and here we're going to set the multiplier, which is going to be for the lateral faces, so I smaller than 4 because we have 4 lateral faces. It's going to be the loop index, otherwise it's going to be -1. Okay, so this does the cube. Okay, we can now collapse this stuff. Yeah, we can collapse it. And let's set a rotation on the assembly. So keyframes, transform, rotate Y 1 turn. Okay, this does it, and this is going to be animation RY, some value, it doesn't really matter, some random value, linear, infinite, that's it. This is it for the assembly. We're not going to bother with it any further. We're also going to set a pulsing animation here. So let's say we're going to have a transform here. So transform, actually I don't want to write the scaling factor 3 times, so I'm going to have a function here. So function scale 3D, and this is for when the scaling is uniform, so we have the same factor along all 3 directions. So return scale 3D, and here we have factor, factor, factor. So just because I'm lazy to write this 3 times, so it's going to be something like 0.99, something like that. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to set it in some keyframes. Animation 2. Now let's put this here, and it's not going to be 0.99, it's going to be 0.01. I'm also going to set an animation duration here. It's going to be pretty small because I want to have a fast pulsing animation. So animation A, the duration, let's make it ease in out, infinite, alternate. So that's going to give me a pulsing animation, as you can see. Okay, that looks good. Now, one more thing I want to do here is have a position. And this position is going to be something like rotate Y, and here I'm going to have a calc value, and a J times 360 degrees over, and I need to interpolate this. This is going to be the number of edges. So I haven't set that. Let's set it now, as well as the number of cubes. So they are the same, the number of cubes along one edge. Okay, so now that I've done this, I'm going to add the position here. So and after the position, I'm also going to have a translation. So that's going to be a translate 3D and X 0 along the y-axis, and then a Z. Okay, now for the X, this is going to be half of the number of cubes per edge length times per edge times the edge length. Okay, as for the Z, it's going to be a calc value, and this one is going to depend on a K multiplied with the edge length, and minus X. Okay, so this should do it. Okay, now let's set some initial values for J and K, so they're both going to be 0 initially. Okay, So next we're going to have a couple of loops here. So for I from 1 to the number of edges, what I have here is nth child n plus I times the number of cubes per edge plus 1, and here I'm going to set j to the loop index. Okay, this looks good. Now let's indent it properly and copy paste it, and here it's going to be the number of cubes. Take it out of there, multiply it here, and here I'm going to have the k, not the j. So this should pretty much do it. Now one more thing I want to do here is add an animation delay that depends on the position of each cube. So that's going to be a calc value, calc, and here I'm going to have a multiplying value times minus the animation duration over the number of cubes. Okay, so the value here is going to be, so first of all, a j times the number of cubes, which I also need to interpolate here, plus k. So okay, this looks good. Now one more thing I want to do, and I'm going to use this multiplying factor or something pretty similar for the color. So my color here is going to be an HSL value, hue, saturation, and lightness. So for the hue, I'm going to have a calc value, and then 65% for both saturation and lightness, because I think that works out pretty well. Now I'm going to take that multiplier, and it's going to be times 360 over, and here the number of edges times the number of cubes. And here it's going to be actually j plus 1, and here I'm going to have minus k. So let's have proper indentation. Okay, this looks good. This is pretty much the result I've been after. Let's tweak the box shadow from here a bit. So let's make it just 1 pixel, and let's make a second box shadow, an outer one this time, like this. So this should be it. Yeah, I think this looks good. So yeah, this is it for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have and you want me to be able to do more in the future, please consider supporting my work in one of the ways explained in the description below, with a donation, by getting me something off my Amazon wishlist, or at least by sharing this to show the world what can be done with CSS these days, because I think it's pretty damn cool. In any event, thanks for watching.